Win all in, play my cards right. Up the ante, won blackjack all night. Roll the dice, let it ride. Water the odds, I got snake eyes.
Entrepreneur Perspectives is produced by Quiet Loud Studios, a production company and content network. Learn more at quietloudstudios.com.
So I'm here with Justin Orders. We're talking about Queen's Orders honey. I got that right?
Got it, yeah.
So really interested about your business and just kind of hearing how you got started. So I know you said you went to UNC Charlotte. I'm alumni there too. My daughter went there. So what were you thinking about when you went there, and what were you thinking about majoring in?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I bounced around a lot. I started at App State, lasted there about a year. We came back here, went to Central Piedmont Community College. That's where I got kind of my, I guess,
Prerequisites.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I forget. It was associate's science degree or something.
Okay.
Got transferred over to UNC Charlotte, started there, went for biology. My goal was to go to NC State for entomology, which is bugs.
Okay.
Studied insects. So that also didn't really work out. I had a couple of bad experiences with university schools, and we had a mutual parting. And after that, wanting to know what I wanted to do, figuring out what I wanted to do, I hear expressions like, you don't choose this chooses you.
Right.
Thinking more specifically like instruments, playing music, people say, you don't choose bass chooses you. That's how I feel with bugs.
Okay.
My entire life, I've just been like obsessed with bugs. It wasn't much of a choice. It just felt like a calling. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. At that point, I really was like, I guess I'm not going to school anymore.
Right.
I didn't get suspended from UNC Charlotte. And so I just started volunteering. I started working volunteering at Discovery Blaze Nature off East Boulevard. They had a hive there. This is actually like where I, initially as a kid, that's where I loved going for like birthday trips or whatever, because they have like this crazy good insect museum and they had a hive there. And that's where I first just became like obsessed with beekeeping. And I bought a hive that was 2018. And that just kind of took off from there, just grew and grew and grew.
Sounds like it's grown even more than you imagined from the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah. I just thought it was going to be a hobby at that point. I actually went back to CBCC after UNC Charlotte to start with sustainable technologies. I wanted to get into like solar or something that's, I want to do something sustainable.
Right.
But then I just started to realize how profitable and how like fulfilling beekeeping was. And I just decided to go with that.
So what designates a hive? I know how do you get a hive together? I mean, is it just by having a queen and other bees are attracted, or how do you do that?
It's good to think of a hive as a superorganism. It's a collection of bees. It's on average about 15 to 20,000 bees.
Wow.
Depending on the time of the year. One queen, mostly worker bees, which are female, and a couple boy bees, which are called drone bees. But in my backyard, there's about 40-ish hives, and that's just a collective unit of those bees. That's the misconception is that like, if you have a queen, some people would call me, you're like, I need a queen to start a hive. It's like, no, you do not. You need a hive that has a queen to keep that hive going, but you can't just like have a queen and that's going to grow into a hive.
Right.
It's a piece of it, but it is not the whole thing.
That's interesting. I noticed on your website too, you said that you actually split a hive. So how do you go about that? I mean, how do you split a hive? Did you say on your website that yeah. So how do you do that?
Absolutely. So every spring, that's how I ended up with so many hives, essentially, is I started with one, but every spring, that hive will, because it's successful, if it gets through winter, their idea of repopulating, reproducing is actually through what we call swarming, where the bees will fly to one location, ideally like a hole in a tree, like Pink Winnie the Pooh sort of situation. It'll go establish itself there, and from there, start a whole new colony. Splitting the hive is essentially doing that, making the bees think they did that without actually doing that, because the bees go fly off on their tree. I got to go chase them. That's lost bees. That's lost honey. That's a lot of things. If I instead just take that one hive that is going to want to swarm and split them apart, it fools them into thinking they swarmed. And again, I've got two for the price of one.
So what keeps them from doing what you said about leaving and going in a tree? I mean, what keeps them from doing that? Just the attraction to the queen, or?
Yeah, if I take the queen out and move the bees, like a swarm is the queen leaves along with maybe a third to a half of the bees in that hive.
Right.
If I manually take that queen out and half the bees somewhere else, they think they swarm.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. So if they do swarm somewhere else, You said I have to chase them down. How do you get them back?
A lot of different ways. I mean, there's a video of me doing this about a month ago in May where I had a one go up in the tree, and I just had to take like a giant bucket on one of those Mr. Long arms,
Right.
and just go up there and try to hit them off the tree and get them into the bucket and put them into a hive. And once they get the queen in that regard, the queen is very important. That's
Right.
where you see people get this misconception: oh, I need a queen in order to catch the bees. When they are swarming, they are very, very focused on that queen. So if I catch that queen, can put her, just like the one queen, if I put her into a box, they'll all go flying to it. If I don't, on the other hand, catch the queen, they'll all keep flying up into the tree.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. So, like when I pulled up, I saw they were swarming around. I guess one of the hives there in your driveway.
Probably a little too much.
Yeah. Okay. But are they aggressive? I mean, generally not aggressive, or
No, they're a lot more docile than people think they make out to be. I mean, I do aviary tours here all the time,
Right.
and people are always so amazed by how close they can get to bees without them reacting to it.
It's funny. I'm allergic, not to bees, but to yellow jackets and hornets and wasps, and so I have the EpiPens and the inhaler, and I've had you talk about a bad episode. I had one really bad episode where I got stung by yellow jackets, and my lungs just shut down. But I don't think I'm allergic to bees. Not that I want to get stung by one, but so they're not very aggressive.
Man, they had you come do this today.
Yeah, I know. I thought about it. I was like, I'm going to pull up and but it doesn't sound like the bees are all that aggressive.
No, typically not. Depending on the time of the year, like right now, they can be a little bit cranky because there's actually not a whole lot of food for them to forage on. This is what we call the dearth in beekeeping, where there's just very little nectar for them to forage on.
Okay.
It's really hot and they get irritable. So typically, I can get out there. I can get as close as I want to my hives without any sort of PPE, whatever.
That was one of my next questions. So, yes.
Yeah.
So when you go out there, are you wearing a full suit, to protect yourself, or no?
Almost never a full suit. I'll wear a jacket with a veil on it.
Okay.
The thing they want to sting the most, thing they go after the most, unfortunately, for humans is their face.
Right.
Is their head, because they don't consider us humans. They consider us skinny, hairless bears, and the most vulnerable spot on the bear's body, it's going to be its face, it's going to be its nose.
Right.
So that's where it's going to go. I always want to protect my face, and the jacket also protects the rest of my torso, and I'm kind of okay with getting stung in the fingers. I get stung in the fingers pretty much every single day at this point. That's not a big deal.
Just don't worry about it now.
Yeah, but getting stung in the face, I got stung in the eyelid last year. That was the most painful sting I've ever had.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to go to urgent care.
That doesn't sound like much fun.
Yep.
So tell me about when you first started. So you had one hive, and then I know you said you had to really get educated as far as how to deal with that. Tell me about some things that I did right and some things that I did wrong and what I learned from that.
Yeah, the thing I just right off the bat, what I did wrong was just buying a hive and being like, I can do this, I can figure this out. I guess I did make it work out, but not without a lot of trial and error, because this is a like generations old art skill. It's not something that a lot of people think, even though there is backyard beekeeping and all this, that they can just the dream, the idea, I guess, is people have is, as I set up hives in people's backyard. Their first thought is, I buy this hive, I put it in the backyard, I go every once in a while, get some honey, the bees are happy, I don't have to worry about them that much. It is not that at all. There is so much to this.
So what's your daily routine? I mean, there things you have to do every day related to it, or
not every single day. Like I'm not in a hive every single day, but I'd say at least on average, probably about every other week, I'm doing something with the hive.
What's the most important thing to do? Like, as far as keeping them going, is there something you have to do all the time that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have to do it all the time, but I always have to be mindful of this. It is this tiny red mite called Varroa mites. Their scientific name is actually Varroa destructor, based on how destructive they are. If I don't keep those mites in check, which getting to this time of the year, this is where they can become really, really big problem. I can lose a hive in a matter of weeks.
So what do you do to fight the mites off?
A couple different things I can do. If I use chemical agents, they're all organic. Like some are just basically scents. Like I have one that's derivative of thyme, menthol, and eucalyptus, and I put it in the hives and just drives the mites out. It kills the mites. There's another one there are a couple different acids that I use, and sometimes we'll even just split the hive in half.
Yep.
And that way it gives the brood break, so there's not mites feeding on the baby bees, the developing bees. The thing I've gotten into more recently, and I'm hoping to do more along the way, is introducing queens that have genetic predispositions to the hygienic of the mite. So not the queen itself is cleaning the mite from the bees' bodies, but the bees that it produces through laying of eggs.
She's got more that are resistant or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
They understand there's mites on their bodies and thus clean them off.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's interesting. So nectar, I guess, is their primary food. Is that what they're eating? Is the nectar from flowers?
Nectar and pollen. Nectar is their carbohydrates. Pollen is their fats and protein.
Right. Okay. Do you plant things for them to feed on, or is it just natural?
Most of what I get is natural. Right here, we back up to Ladder Nature Preserve, so we have acres and acres of undeveloped. I mean, they do a control burn there every once in a while, but otherwise it's pretty unkept. I plant things here, but nothing compares to what they can get out there.
I noticed on your website, too, you were talking about different, like lighter and darker. Can you manipulate that as far as the taste of the honey or the color of the honey? Is that something you do?
I wouldn't say I necessarily manipulate it, but I will like cherry pick it. So I'll do small batch honey extractions where I'll just take like early spring is a lot lighter and I'll try to get a bunch of that early spring honey. And then I'll do a later season harvest and that'll get my darker. So rather than blending the two together, I get like two very distinct flavor and color profile honeys.
That's so interesting. I have so many, on the way over here, I was just like, man, I got so many questions that I got to ask. I mean, it's just a unique business. So when did you start thinking about trying to do this I'm assuming you're doing this for a living now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, 100%. It's smacked out in the middle of the pandemic. I was working at a vet office, South Park Animal Hospital, which no shame or shade.
No.
The vet industry or whatever. I wanted to be around, if I could choose humans or insects or animals, it'd always be animals.
Right.
And I just realized that I actually put an ad out on Nextdoor about this program that we offer, my Hive Host program. I don't think I had the name Hive Host at that time, but I was just like, I'll keep bees for you. I'll take care of your hive. You get the honey. And I got, I want to say like 50 responses in just a matter of like the weekend. And maybe only about a handful of those actually turned into real clients, but I just understood from that point on, there is a desire for this. There's a market for this. And that's when I decided to quit my job, like pretty soon after that. And I went into doing this full time.
That's pretty bold. So I noticed you said you were up to 600, is it gallons of?
600 pounds of honey.
Okay.
That's a little outdated. And at this point, we're probably just above 1,000 pounds for this year. And truly, it's actually been a pretty light year as far as honey production with the drought and everything that we had earlier this season that we're still experiencing, but it was a bad season.
So is that something that affects the amount of honey you get?
100%.
The water? And
yes.
Okay.
That's one of the things I always, as I teach new beekeepers about beekeeping, I run people through a new beekeeper training program and to just be extremely mindful and understanding of this balance the bees have with nature, with trees, with forage. Like this was a historic drought. We hadn't had a drought like this since we've been recording for drought.
Wow.
In response to that, the trees were not producing enough nectar from the flowers. The flowers were literally falling off the trees because the trees weren't able to give them any nectar. So that had a huge impact. And just as much as if we have too much rain, the bees aren't able to go out and forage because it's too rainy, maybe it's too cold. That's also going to cause a bad nectar flow.
That's really interesting. So how many people around here produce honey? I mean, is there a big, production here, or are you kind of unique in this area? Or
in this area of Charlotte, I would say there's a handful of us that are, I would say, like 500 plus pounds a year producers. But Charlotte itself, the Nectar Beekeeping Association, which I'm actually the secretary of, is a pretty old and historic beekeeping association. The North Carolina State Beekeepers Association is the oldest and largest beekeepers association in the country.
Oh, wow.
So it's a popular state for beekeeping. I think that's kind of why it found me. It's so it's such an early age because I was just like, it was kind of hard to escape at a certain point. Everyone had at least one hive.
Right. So I noticed you said that you just started putting a sign in your front yard that said honey and that you were, surprised, I guess, at how much response you got. Is that still your main primary thing? Is just telling people I have honey, or are you actually marketing and trying to go into the grocery stores or anything? Or?
Yeah. I kind of have to reflect on what you just said too, because of the way I wish I took a picture of, I just got like these I had like a corrugated plastic sign and then just taped like honey. It
Yep.
looked like almost like a ransom note the way it was. And just spray painted. The outline, of course, was dark, and then the inside was honey for sale. And it looked so terrible. I've probably still have the sign somewhere. I got to pull it out. But yeah, I put that in the yard and started getting some traction from that. But no, honey is not my main source of income. I do my Hive Host program, but that's where I keep bees for the people. People want bees. They don't want to do any of the dirty, sticky work for those bees. I take care of it for them. I train new beekeepers. I'm like listing this in the order of how much this makes me. I do. Then it's public honey. Then it's bee removals, removing bees from people's homes, trees, whatever. I do presentations for schools, for 4-H programs.
Wow.
Yeah, anything bees, really. Yeah.
So you sort of got multiple sources of income then from different types of things. So keeping other people's bees is one of your primary sources of income. Okay, yes. Interesting.
I would not be able to do this full time if it was not for that.
How many clients do you have, you think?
About 50 right now. It's grown about 10 each year since I started it. Yeah.
So it's just the same kind of work, fighting the mites a little bit.
I'd say it's also with that, it's every yard is unique. And I think that's the fun part of it is every yard has, different forage, different, even like neighbor to neighbor in the same neighborhood. You'll get completely different honey from this neighbor as opposed to this neighbor and kind of exploring and seeing that. But with each yard comes its own challenges. Sometimes it's too shady and then it leads to other, insects, other kind of like parasitic insects wanting to feed on the bees and their resources. There's elevation. Maybe there's not enough forage. Maybe it's in a very developed area and they're just not getting enough, or it's too dry, or whatever.
Right.
It has its own host of challenges.
Yep, that's interesting. So where's the perfect, and maybe here, but where's the perfect location and what's the perfect environment for raising bees and honey? Is there such a thing? Or
There is. I love Charlotte does have a pretty good tree canopy still. I know they're developing left and right.
Oh, yes.
I've lived for my whole life and I've seen so many things turn from this once glorious forest into like, whatever. Sometimes it's just like, there's a lot of I wouldn't say factories, but like just development.
I noticed on the way over here, I saw lots of construction coming some of the back roads. There were a lot of construction going
left and right. Yeah. I mean, around here, they've left a lot of untamed for how long? I don't know. But I would say, honestly, I've kept bees all over Nectar County. South Charlotte's got a lot. I really like, Myers Park, Cotswold, Foxcroft, further south, Pineville. That's where, for whatever reason, I always get a lot of honey. And also further north, up in Cornelius, Davidson, Mooresville, there seems to always be like just a constant nectar flow through spring and summer.
Oh, that's good. So where are most of your customers in this area pretty much? Or what's the furthest you're going?
They're all spread out. The furthest I go is Marvin, or rather Waxhaw, and then the furthest Maiden, not Marvin.
Maiden, yeah, I know. That's kind of. I actually live in Greensboro.
Okay,
so that's kind of up north, up 220, I guess, up that way.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. So tell me more about the business. So you started, developing and getting into this. Is there some business challenges? I mean, when you're really trying to run this as a business, I guess, and is there, challenge? I guess you don't have any employees. It's just you, basically. Or?
Oh no, I have a part-time employee.
Okay,
she's been working with me for her second year. But the challenges, I would say, it's kind of understanding there's always something to do. I do love my later seasons. Actually, the kind of the slow season lines up perfectly with the NFL season.
Okay.
From like late August to February, it's not a whole lot to do. I can plan, I can kind of coordinate and prepare for next year. But as soon as March hits, it's on again for another 6 months. And just kind of realizing that there's a little competition. There's a couple other people that do what I do, but it's not like, I'm doing HVAC here or something like that. But again, it's just kind of keeping up with the seasons and knowing this is like, every year I'm learning something new. Every year I'm trying something new. Every year I'm trying to make income in a different way. Like I've been setting up hives in the mountains for this other nectar flow from a different tree. It grows down here, but it grows a lot more up in the mountains of North Carolina at certain altitudes called sourwood.
Right.
And this is year 2 of me doing it. Last year, I brought them up. It was successful this year, and they're up there making honey right now. But last year, I brought them up, but it was too hot, and I lost about half the hives. I put in transit because it just was too hot, and they just, burned up. Yeah.
So bees actually die with that extreme heat?
Oh yeah. They can withstand pretty much any cold temperature you can throw on them, but they can definitely overheat.
Yeah. Like lately it's been in the upper 90s. That's
Mhm.
kind of not good. So I guess the peak season is spring and summer, basically,
Correct.
is your peak
Yes.
season.
I
Yeah.
would say peak is mid-April to the end of May.
Now, did they go dormant at all, or during the wintertime, or what?
Yeah, dormancy is a very good. It's not necessarily hibernation or whatever reptiles do or anything. It's kind of a state of they're not doing a whole lot, but they're keeping warm. They're using the honey that they produce through the year to then use that as fuel to keep. They burn that energy and they vibrate their wings, and that produces heat through friction. And they're able to, again, it'll be like, it was snowing here in like 15 degrees in January. It's hard to believe that right now, but they were still like inside the hive. I had my thermal camera on there. I was reading like 50, 60, 70 degrees.
Keeping it warm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So how do you actually harvest is that the right word, harvest the honey? How do you actually do that with your hives? That's interesting too. Like, how do you actually get the honey out?
Yeah, so every hive you see here in the backyard has kind of they're compartmentalized. The bottom section we have the nursery of the hive where the queen's laying eggs, there's baby bees, and everything above that typically will have we call honey supers. These are smaller boxes that they exclusively store honey in. We'll actually put a metal grate underneath or rather between the two boxes so the queen can go up into those supers, those honey supers. When it's time to honey harvest, we take those boxes that are exclusively for honey off. We bring them over to my extraction area. So there's like very little bees in there.
Right.
We'll take the honeycomb, cut it open because typically they'll actually seal it with wax. Put that into a giant centrifuge or a honey spinner, slowly spins the honey out, falls to the bottom. We then filter out any wax or anything that gets in the honey in the process. But then that's it. That is how we do our raw honey.
That was one of my questions too. Is there anything you have to do for purification purposes? And you just kind of answered that.
No, the rawer the better.
Yeah, but you're still kind of filtering to make sure there's nothing else in there.
But a very light filter. It's like, if anything, like not, because we actually want people saying you want raw local honey is because that has actually small amounts of pollen in it that will help you if you eat that over time acclimate to the allergies in your environment. That's what it's a local honey. So if we filter that out, we're not going to get that benefit.
Wow. Maybe I need to start having more honey because,
absolutely.
Of course, like I said, I'm not allergic to bees, but definitely yellow jackets, and yellow jackets are mean. So do any other animals eat the bees? I mean, is it the birds or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're a sweet treat flying around. They got honey, they got pollen. The birds try to eat them out of the sky. There's dragonflies, the praying mantis around here will eat them up. Nothing is, as I would say, that's kind of all, I don't worry about
incidental,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the mites, there's these little beetles that don't necessarily feed on the bees, but they'll eat the food of the bees, and they can sometimes run the bees out of the hive if the hive is not strong enough. Yellow jackets, I would love to put this on the radar of anyone that's keeping bees or bee conscientious. There's a yellow-legged hornet. It's this invasive hornet. It's actually a super hornet. It means that it reproduces very, very, very fast and in great numbers. They found it off the coast of Savannah a couple of years ago, and it slowly made its way into South Carolina. They found it in York County, across the border.
Yep.
Just one nest back in December, and they think that it hitchhiked on like someone's car, RV, or tractor, and they just drove it in because they haven't found any other nests near there. But if that actually gets a nice foothold in this area in the southeast, we would be, yes, this is not good for beekeepers or really anyone that likes insects because they eat a lot of things, not just bees.
Oh, wow. So tell me your website, because I do want to put the website on the podcast so people know how to get a hold of you, because there may be other people out there that want to start a hive and you could help them. What's your website?
QueensOrdersHoney.com. Closer to that. www.queensordershoney.com. Google all the stuff. Yes.
That is so cool.
Also, my social media profiles, Queen's Orders Honey on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the stuff.
Now, do you ship honey as well if somebody wants to order on your website?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of what we do is around Mecklenburg County. We'll ship it in the way that I'm always making routes. I'll typically drop off honey if you're like in my routes.
Right.
But you can also just pick it up here. And some people like to because then you can see the bees. You can actually see, okay, this is actually where the honey came from rather than just like, oh, I have no idea if this is real honey or not.
Yeah.
Here, you can
I noticed your website said, yeah, you can see you see them in my yard and you know that you're getting local honey and not something from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Super interesting. What else can you tell me? Where do you see your business in 5 years? Do you see expansion or growing or?
Yeah, I would say that I'm probably going to, I'm really multifaceted right now. Like list all the things that I do. I also do apiary tours. I didn't mention that, where people can come and take a look at the bees. Sometimes they can even suit up. But I think I'll become a little more streamlined rather than multi. I'll kind of focus on maybe just 3 of those facets. I don't know which ones exactly. Definitely my Hive Host program. That'll be number 1. I'd hope in honey as well. But that 3rd or maybe 4th one, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I want to get more hives. I want to set up more hives for honey production in other yards. Huntersville is a great place to do that here. There's still a lot of farmland despite a lot of development. Like I have some hives just down the road at a farm and I'm looking to expand elsewhere. I've really got this like the actual understanding of how to keep bees really down to a science, as I did not have in my first couple of years. And I feel confident that I can keep a lot of hives around the area.
That's awesome. How long does it take before a hive will start? Like if you start a hive from ground zero, how long does it take before it's producing honey? Is it within a season or does it take a couple of years? Or
there's an old adage for answering beekeeping question that goes, it depends.
Yeah.
That is one that it is just depends on the time of the year, or rather the year. So like I set up a lot of hives for my clients this year. And like last year when I set them up, it was fine. They made plenty of honey for that first year. This year, because of the drought things I mentioned earlier, they did not make a lot of honey. I'm actually having to sometimes feed them honey, or rather not honey, but sugar syrup.
Right.
That doesn't then contaminate the honey, as some people think. We don't take that. If we feed them sugar syrup, that's only going to go for the hive.
Right.
But just to say, again, it just depends on the season, the timing of the year. But I would say if you start with a hive one year, by the next year, you're almost assured to get some amount of honey, like 20, 30 pounds at the very least.
Super interesting. I know are you also going into some of the schools? I know you said something about 4-H, I guess. Are you doing any, like going into some of the local schools and talking about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I do a program for mostly like 2nd graders or elementary school kids where like just getting an introduced to bees. I'll bring an actual observation hive. People can see the bees in a safe, enclosed environment.
Right.
Give them a little bit of honey, kind of let them taste the honey,
That's cool.
Learn about bees, and hopefully to sway their minds from like, this is not this dangerous insect that's going to sting you or wants to sting you, but actually an insect that is incredibly beneficial to not just in that it makes honey, but also for our agricultural system.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good idea. Anything else you want to share with us? I mean, I think we've covered it. This has been really, really interesting. Anything else you'd like to share or?
Yeah, I guess just if you're ever interested in beekeeping or wanting to help them save bees, like there's a lot of avenues to do that. It doesn't even have to be honeybees. It can be native bees, but just starting somewhere like planting native flowers in your garden, in your area, wherever you can, will make a huge impact.
Well, I really appreciate your time. This has been super interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Entrepreneur Perspectives. This show is produced by Quiet Loud Studios, where we create podcast writing and original media. Learn more at quietloudstudios.com.